The questions of whether the 23rd century Starfleet had holodeck technology and why it wasn't used until the time of Star Trek: The Next Generation are canonically addressed in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 4. A Space Adventure Hour is the first ever holodeck episode of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds and a genre-bending, thoroughly amusing murder mystery romp. It was directed by Jonathan Frakes and written by Dana Horgan and Catherine Lynn. Captain Christopher Pike, Anson Mount, and Number 1, Rebecca Romaine, assign Lieutenant Lon Noonien the duty of testing out Starfleet's new recreation room or holodeck. Using pattern buffer data of the Enterprise's crew as the holodeck's characters, Lon requests that the computer on the USS Enterprise create a murder case for her to solve based on Amelia Moon, one of her favorite detective novels from childhood. But Lon quickly finds herself confined in the holodeck, depleting the Starship Enterprise's energy and possibly causing it to crash into a nearby star for destruction. Here is how Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 4 is set up. Holodeck technology in the mid-23rd century consumed too much of a starship's power to be useful, especially for crew recreation during deep space travel, as revealed in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 4. In order to maintain Lon's complex holodeck software, the USS Enterprise's computer redirected its power and systems, which was detrimental to the vessel. Additionally, safety procedures were turned off, keeping Lieutenant Lon Noonien confined to the holodeck until she finished the story and figured out the murder mystery. In the end, Captain Christopher Pike decided that the holodeck's technology was too unworkable to be used on starships and called for its burying. Pike put an end to the notion of a holodeck on the Starship Enterprise, despite the fact that Lieutenant Montgomery Scott, Martin Quinn, noted that holodecks could be successful with a dedicated server and power source. It's interesting to note that in Star Trek: Discovery Season 2, Captain Pike had outlawed holographic technology. In the middle of the 23rd century, Starfleet made extensive use of holographic communications. However, after the USS Enterprise crashed, Captain Pike had the holograms taken out of the ship. It appears that Pike has little tolerance for holograms, and he quickly removed the Enterprise's holodeck. The murder of the studio head who canceled the 1969 science fiction television series The Last Frontier was the subject of Lieutenant Lon Noonien Amelia Moon mystery. The suspects were assembled at the Hollywood home where the murder occurred, and they were all somehow connected to The Last Frontier. After killing Agent Joni Gloss, Celia Rose Gooding, producer Sonny Lupino, Rebecca Romaine, and actor Lee Woods, Melissa Nevia, the killer attempted to kill Lon with a falling chandelier. T.K. Bellows, Anson Mount, shot the Vulcan and ran away after confronting Lon and her partner, Lieutenant Spock, Ethan Peck, while intoxicated. Lon embraced her Vulcan dance partner, relieved that Spock had only sustained a flesh wound, and discovered that he did not radiate body heat. Through their dance lessons, Lon got to know Spock well and reached to the conclusion that Spock was both the murderer and a hologram. The Spock Lon first encountered as Amelia Moon was always a fiction, and the real Spock never set foot in the holodeck. Spock was programmed as the attacker because he was the last person Lon would suspect, and the USS Enterprise's computer followed her instructions for a mystery she could solve. However, Joni Gloss explains that the true theme of A Space Adventure Hour was found in Lon's Amelia Moon murder mystery, The Last Frontier, or how Star Trek enables viewers to better understand the world and themselves while tackling challenging concepts and ideas through the lens of science fiction. No matter how ridiculous and goofy it was, The Last Frontier could have lasted for decades, which is the actual worth of Star Trek and the sadness of its cancellation. Because Commander Pelia, Carol Kane, was on shore leave and the young engineer was overwhelmed by the holodeck problem, Scotty was left to fly alone in engineering. A far cry from the miracle worker Lieutenant Commander Montgomery Scott, James Doohan, who will serve as the chief engineer of the USS Enterprise in Star Trek. The original series, Scotty is brilliant but insecure and inexperienced. Interestingly, Scotty called out Ensign Nyota Uhura, Celia Rose Gooding, for assistance after realizing that Lon was stuck in the holodeck, which was taking all of the Starship Enterprise's power to maintain the program. Although Communications Officer Uhura is a senior officer and a member of the bridge crew, Scotty sought for another genius from the Enterprise's lower decks since he didn't want to approach Captain Pike or Lieutenant Commander Una Chinriley. It's interesting to note that Scotty is still troubled by his prior job aboard the USS Stardiver, which was destroyed by the Gorn in Hegemony, Part 1, the Season 2 finale of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. Despite his brilliance, Scotty feels inadequate on board the Enterprise because he hasn't entirely dealt with his guilt about being the only survivor of the Stardiver. An episode of The Last Frontier featuring Maxwell Saint, Paul Wesley, and his crew, Adult Shaw and Lee Woods, bookends Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 4. The show's producers and his co-stars accuse Saint, a swaggering and heroic starship captain known for his diction, of hammy overacting. This is the fourth Kirk that Paul Wesley has portrayed on Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, and Maxwell Saint is based on Lieutenant James T. Kirk. In Star Trek's Prime Universe, Wesley first played Captain Kirk from a different timeline, then another Captain Kirk from a different reality, with whom Lieutenant Lon Noonien Singh fell in love, and ultimately Lieutenant James T. Kirk, the younger Captain Kirk played by William Shatner. New romances aboard the USS Enterprise were promised in Season 3 of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. In an unexpected love alliance, Lieutenants Lon Noonien Singh and Spock met that requirement. Spock and Lon became dancing partners during a 3-month time jump, as revealed in Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 2, Wedding Bell Blues, and their chemistry on the dance floor only grew stronger. Lon and Spock formally became a couple after their kiss at the conclusion of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 4. This suggests that Lon has given up on ever dating Lieutenant James T. Kirk after he came clean about having a girlfriend named Carol Marcus who was pregnant. It appears that Spock has likewise moved on from Chapel. Considering that Mr. Spock, Leonard Nimoy, and Captain Kirk will later meet Lon's ancestor, Con Noonien Singh, Ricardo Montalban, the romance between Spock and Lon raises a lot of problems. Even though Spock and Kirk are now romantically involved with Lon, they never bring her up when they first meet Con. Before Season 5 concludes, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds must answer these questions. Please don't forget to subscribe.